you have to believe that you've got what it takes to help you drive your journey. Social media has popularized this term bounce back, but you're not a tennis ball, you're a human. There is this groundedness in you that is such a strong compass that tells you what to bother with and about. And that just gives you so much power as a woman.
Hello everyone, and welcome to season 3 of How She Did It. This is crazy. Guys, I mean, so much has changed in my life, both personally and professionally, since I started this show 2 years ago. But all of these shifts are what make me even more excited for what is to come. So let's just jump right in. Today, I am interviewing Jenn Low, the founder and CEO of Wanderlust Co, which, if you don't know, is a jewelry brand that has become a global force with fans like Chrissy Teigen and Gigi Hadid and more. So let's just jump right into these insights. I am so happy to have you here today, Jenn. How are you?
Very excited to be here.
Thank you.
I can't wait to chat through our journey so far.
Me too. I'm very, very excited to just hear about your story in general. So I kind of want to talk about the genesis of Wanderlust Co in general. You know, I mean, I think the 2010s, there was such a defining characteristic of like stacking jewelry, right? I think a lot of celebrities were like layering their rings and like mixing their metals. And you, this young Malaysian entrepreneur, saw this as an opportunity. So talk to me a little bit about the inspiration behind your brand.
That's such a great question. I love chatting about like the history of the brand. Just for context, I was born and raised in Malaysia, and I actually spent quite a bit of time studying in Australia, and I ended up the beginning of my career working in fashion, in merchandising and buying. And in Australia, I noticed that the fashion landscape had such a way of storytelling, which we know now to be so relevant, especially in, you know, the whole journey of branding. But I noticed that a lot of the Asian-based brands were just copying or ripping, luxury brands off, but no one was really elevating or sharing the Asian culture, the way that things are sustainably made, and then sharing more of a narrative around the lifestyle of a product or a sustainable way of creating the product. And that to me was the gap in the market, and I never looked back.
Absolutely. But before you started your brand, you went to college, right? And you double majored in finance and media communications. So talk to me about how your educational background has kind of shaped your approach in how you go about your jewelry brand.
Yeah. So my dad actually initially really wanted me to study accounting, but I secretly enrolled in like marketing and communications.
Oh, I love that.
And one term into my studies, he noticed, and I got a very angry call. Everyone knows that, like, because, you know, in your heart, I think for every woman, you're still daddy's little girl. And he was not happy with me. He made me switch back. And I negotiated with him that I would do one extra year, but take on another degree. And that was when I studied communication, psychology, and journalism. So I have a really strange sort of education background that has now worked out in my favor because I'm very comfortable with numbers and business strategy and business acumen and all that stuff they teach you in business school. But at the same time, I've married that with the creativity of storytelling, communications, and how people think and what makes them purchase something, their buying behavior, and even like the different consumption nature between generations. When you talk about Gen Z versus millennials, like what makes them like something, not like something. So I really have my dad and that one very, very awkward phone call to thank after all these years.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. What a story. And what sorts of challenges did you start when you first started Wanderlust Co?
So that's a great question. For context, when I first started the brand, Instagram did not exist. And Shopify, as what we know today, to be such a great platform. Exactly. Fintech, you know, there was only PayPal at that time. There was no Stripe. You know, all these different payment methods that we now know and can't live without. So it was a very, very different landscape. I must say that the environment and the technology available to young business owners or aspiring entrepreneurs is a lot easier now. At the same time, it's obviously we've seen a steep rise in competition because anyone with a great idea can start a business, which also makes it a fair play, because I think that any healthy industry is one that is, full of new ideas.
And speaking of business challenges, I think it's so much easier to deal with the challenges that come with starting a business if you know what those core values are that you started that business with. So what are some of those foundational values that you still honor today when it comes to Wanderlust Co?
Well, we've got 5 core values in the business that's very much for the team to drive towards. But I think one of the key things that I hold really close that inspired the 5 values is just a really basic saying I have in my mind all the time, which is do what you can with what you have. Because I think sometimes with so much information, we really lose the plot and confuse ourselves and overwhelm ourselves. Whereas if you really boil things down to the base and, the base of it all, you really sometimes don't need so much. So just a fun fact, like I have never raised any funds or like gone to VCs, or so the business is fully independent, and I've always taken my time to do the right things. And the times that I've failed miserably or like haven't had a great outcome is probably because I was rushing myself or doubting myself or comparing myself to someone else and thinking, well, I should do that or be that way. And anytime I've deviated away from my very core value, which is do what you can with what you have, it's always resulted in less than when I sometimes have less. I get more from sticking to my core values.
Yeah, it's interesting how life works. Absolutely. Speaking of those foundations, your brand started in Malaysia, but has expanded so far past its roots in Asia. Talk to me about how you were able to grow your brand to a global scale.
I think the thing for me when I first started the brand was not to confine the customer or our community to a specific location. When we first started the brand, I came up with the brand name Wanderlust as something energetic, which is that you're constantly seeking for what's next. So you're constantly discovering and you're not settling, It doesn't mean you're rushing, but it means that you're constantly curious and you're ever changing and ever transient and evolving. And as a result, I think, again, with that core feeling, there was no sort of age or like, a place, that I was targeting. So it felt like it was for every digital girl. And now with, community evolving, we have grandmas who come in to twid with their grandchildren. We've got moms coming in to pierce with their kids. Or we've got besties who come in and they match and they might be different gender, but they just make it work. And I think like seeing how people interpret the brand has made me proud of that very beginning, which is just the branding itself, which is that you're ever changing and that's okay.
And not placing restrictions on yourself. I love that, because that's also like the whole vibe of this show is like, we can do it all. I think you're the perfect person to talk to about building a successful brand. So, there are so many established jewelry brands out there now, you know what I mean? And there are so many new ones popping up daily. So why do you think Wanderlust Co. was able to grab the attention of celebrities like Gigi Hadid and Jessica Alba? Like, what about your brand stood out?
I think that people who really, really absolutely are passionate about fashion or creating cool outfits or dressing to how they feel, and are connected to that intuition within themselves, are always seeking for something new or something undiscovered. And if you look at our products, for example, for Lunar New Year this year, we had a lucky cat and its arm moves. We have a fortune cookie that pops open, it's a locket.
Oh my God.
And we had someone in the community reach out and say, oh, my fiance made me the luckiest girl in the world, proposing to me with the lucky fortune cookie necklace because he hid, will you marry me in there? And I think the thing is, celebrities are also people at the the end of the day, just like you and I, and we're all looking for something that to make us smile and to make us feel good. And I think jewelry is such a personal thing. Of course, we can all wear fast fashion pieces, but for me, the reason why the brand exists is that we're a refined masstige brand. You know, like your Lululemon, like your Aesop. It's not full on luxury, but at the same time, there is an assurance of quality. There's an assurance of the company taking care of its people, taking care of the environment, which is exactly what we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're tapping into something very important here. And it's something that I personally love so much about jewelry, is how it holds such deep sentimental and emotional value, right? So how do you keep that in mind when you're designing your pieces?
I think we always start with a feeling and an energy that we want to convey. For example, for mental health, 2 years ago, we tapped into this saying, trust the flow of the universe. And so we designed this nugget, fluid looking pendant. And we etched it with the word breathe. And Mental Health Month, the official color is green. So we tapped into emerald as the gemstone of choice, because who doesn't love good emerald stone? And so every season we tap into that, and we think about how a wearer should feel when they have this in their collection.
Yeah, I'm stunned by the amount of creativity that goes into all this. And you've spoken about striking this perfect balance between business and creativity, right? Because I think there's this misconception that these two things exist in separate realms. But I think that when it comes to fashion and accessories and designing, that's very much untrue. So how have you learned to merge the two to contribute to the success of Wanderlust Co?
I think that as a founder, and I'm currently also the CEO, because some founders have a CEO that they hire and they focus on, creative direction, art direction. Currently, I am very happy still running the business. And I think when you have to pick a choice, when you're a founder, you have to pick a choice whether you can balance the two. And that's such a great question. And I would break it down to simple terminology, which is feeling and fact. Because art is a feeling, creating is a feeling, but then running your profit and loss, like looking at your commercial reports and even, I guess, approving budgets, that's all factual. So I think being able to distill the difference between the two, I always say look at data with a cold heart, but execute with a warm hand.
I like that.
Yes, and I think women especially, I think 80% of my team are women.
As
and
they should be.
Yeah, and I think women have that really strong intuition and feeling that we've always been told is too much. Whereas I think if you harness it right and you distill it well, it actually allows you the art of executing with the warm hand, but the clarity of still being able to unpack facts and data and information to make the right business choices. So I think really for me, I turned 40 last year, and I think it was...
No, you didn't.
I did, yeah. I have 2 kids. So that's a whole thing too, because...
What? I never would have guessed that.
Thank
Clearly,
you.
I didn't do my research because
You're
I
my
should
favorite
know how
person
to
in New York now.
What? No, I never ever would have guessed that you are... Okay, you look amazing. That's
Thank you.
point.
I'll take that. Jet lag and all. I was gonna say just that being a woman and feeling all those things, being a mom, and just not over compartmentalizing, but fusing that all together and owning that as your story, but then bringing all of that into decisions, whether it's creative or factual, is that whole thing of becoming. And for me, I think that is exactly what women can become and optimize for themselves and arrive.
Yeah, absolutely. And clearly this approach works. I mean, you are stocked in 30 countries, 400 different retailers, and you're still expanding. I mean, you just opened up a location in Philly, you're launching in New York, and you're just growing continuously. So as your brand expands across these different geographies, how are you making sure that your core identity is still maintained?
I think just being really grounded is important. I think so many of us, myself included, and I only can say so, today confidently because I've been there. I've been burnt out before, we've all been there. I've done too much. I've been overwhelmed. And you really need to go to that space and befriend that emotion and make friends with your pain, make friends with your mistakes, and then come back to say, hey, we're opening in Bleecker Street in the West Village, right? And we're achieving all these things. Oh, we've got, we just shipped some product out to, certain celebs who've called for product in big names with the launch of the store. And you hold space for that with as much groundedness as you do for the errors. I think that's super important.
Yeah. And speaking of those celebs, I think another thing when it comes to building a successful business, having celebrities like Gigi Hadid wearing your pieces is such a huge accomplishment. But how do you leverage that exposure to help grow your brand?
I think that it's such a compliment when a celebrity who could wear any product wears your product, especially because we don't do paid endorsements. We wouldn't be able to afford it. Like I shared, we're an independent brand. So for any independent brands who are tuning in or listening in to try to get bites on how to build their business, I would say, I think that the right celebrity that would love and have the design resonate for them. And the important thing is obviously the moment you've got that clip to share it with media and have that shared, the fans are always really great because they're always trying to figure out what they're wearing.
Right.
But I have to say, and I'm going to be, I guess reversing what I've just shared with you, that for every celebrity that wears a product, I'm just as grateful for the everyday person who's purchasing our product. I always say to my team, someone's spending their paycheck on this. If they're spending $50 on this, we're going to give them $100 worth of value for the quality, the design, how long they can wear it for. And as fun as it is to see Gigi Hadid, and I love her, she's the best. I've met her once actually randomly, and she remembers wearing our products, and she's just the warmest person.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, for every one of those moments, I would be just honestly as thrilled seeing someone on the street, like a real person wearing the product, living in the jewelry. Our tagline is jewels to live in. And you can sleep, shower in it. You can do all these things in it. Like I sleep with all of my tennis bracelets.
So
I do school runs in the morning. I don't have time. I wake up and sometimes this is like my little glimmer armor. Like I feel ready to go.
Yeah.
And like my little flat bags. So I think for every tired mum or every person who's working so hard and juggling so many things, for them to feel complete or ready to go because they've got our pieces in at such a good price for the quality, that makes my heart sing just as much as a Gigi Hadid moment.
Yeah, I love that. And it really speaks to the integrity of your brand and to who you are as a person. You once said that entrepreneurship is an MBA in resourcefulness, specifically when you were talking about how a freelancer helped you build your very first website. So what did that experience teach you in the very beginning stages of starting your business?
I think, again, do what you can with what you have. It's too easy sometimes when things get hard to fall into that rut of throwing yourself a pity party. And that doesn't mean that what you're feeling is not valid. It doesn't mean that it's not hard, but it means that you have to believe that you've got what it takes and you can figure out answers outside of the box, something different to help you drive your journey. I would want to also thank my team, who's always behind me, who's always supporting me, because alone you can only do so much. And my team is absolutely always believing in me and the brand as much as I believe in them. And I think believe is something that goes a very, very long way. If someone looks at you and you feel they genuinely see something else that you can achieve, that is something so priceless, and vice versa, right? So I think that all comes together to drive more growth and more possibilities, whether it's a freelancer or someone full-time in your team.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been giving such great advice today, but I do want to take a moment to ask you for even more practical advice. We all face moments of self-doubt, right? But I think the journey of starting a business can multiply that self-doubt by about 1,000.
For sure.
Right. So
Yeah.
how do you navigate those moments of uncertainty?
Man, if I had to think about every time I had self-doubt, or there's been too many. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and pretend everything's perfect. Um, I think when you're feeling like you're going to give up, or you're feeling like you're not good enough, if you're feeling like you haven't got what it takes, I think spend some time, sitting in that dump, because social media has popularized this term bounce back.
Mm.
But you're not a tennis ball, you're a human. And I think the sooner you allow yourself that space to validate how you're feeling, the sooner you then pick yourself back up. And I think what I've learned over the years is, as much as your family, your friends, your team can tell you you've got what it takes, until you start believing in yourself and you become your own biggest fan and you normalize these downs and you make friends with these downs as much as you make friends with being up here and being really happy about all those big moments, that's when you really start living. And that's when you don't need a break from entrepreneurship. You don't need a break from the challenges, because truly the challenges is part of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I needed to hear that. Thank you. I also want to talk a little bit about taking risks, because it is well documented that women are more risk averse than our male counterparts. So talk to me about a risk that you took that you feel like paid off in the end, and how do you know that it's the right time for it?
The thing about risks is there's calculated risks, and then there are risks that you can't foresee. For example, the recent tariffs, right? We literally had goods landing the week that tariffs went live, and the news globally exploded. And so we had to navigate different things with that I won't spend too much time going into. It just wasn't fun, let's put it at that. And I think that grit is really, really important. I'm such a big fan of women and how we work and how we operate and how we feel things, and the word too much, because I don't think it's too much. I think it's valid. And I think that in every challenge, you have to sit in it and distill what you can control, what you can manage, and then what you can't. And you need to be able to make friends with cutting your losses. Making friends with not always being able to optimize everything, and making friends with the opportunity cost of saying, well, I'm going to make this choice right now so we can move on. It's going to cost this much, and I'm going to have to be okay with it. I think men are less detailed and they take less things to heart, which is also why they can get over things quicker. So I always say, mistakes are the portal of discovery.
I like that. You have such great little sayings. Are these coming off the top of your head, or are these things that you like, sayings that you go by?
There are sayings I go by, and there are sayings that have pulled me through every dark hole.
Yeah.
Truthfully,
I love it.
Yeah.
And it's such a great mindset to have, especially I like what you mentioned about not having to optimize everything. Like, that is something I needed to hear as well, because we're always so focused on leveling up. What's next? How can we do better? How can we build off of this? It's not always about that. They say that success starts in the mind, right? And I think that that's such a great quote. Are there any mindset shifts or key perspectives that you have gained along your journey?
There's been too many. I'm trying to pick one, but there's so many. I really need a moment for that one.
Yeah. Maybe a moment that, maybe you thought a certain way up until a certain point, and then there was maybe a kind of inflection point that changed your entire outlook on something.
I think the idea of perfection is something that a lot of us struggle with. And I think one of the key themes we've chatted about today, which I hope also helps listeners, is that women, more often than not, more than our male counterparts, strive for perfectionism. It's not great in today's day and age, because life is so ever changing and much more unpredictable than it has ever been. So, then you have to go and take courses on like change management or like pivoting and and I try to think about funny anecdotes. I'm quite a deep thinker, and I try to think back to like the Stone Age, right? And when people literally lived in a cave, and like they didn't have weather report, they didn't have, I don't know, Uber, they didn't have, and I think, are we really, really struggling? Like, do we have so little that we're in this mindset of just constantly like complaining and being so unhappy? And I think the art of being able to let the small things go is something that was really hard for me, because being raised Asian and firstborn daughter, like I would be just berated for everything. I have 3 younger siblings. Nothing I did was good enough. I was like mom number 2, mini mom. And so it was so much in me. I had so much like inner child healing to do and unlearning to do, to that point where now like this thing like make friends with your pain, make friends with your failure. What is failing? What is failing? Because if you believe that the universe has a plan for you and you're a good person, you've done all these things, maybe there's something here that's assisted you from something worse, or maybe this here felt really painful, but it's channeling you to the next thing that's going to be so amazing. And you have to believe you deserve that, and that is absolutely meant for you. And I think just what's meant for you is meant for you, and then the art of letting go of what's not meant for you in a gracious way, not because someone else is right, but because your peace is more important. I think that's probably what I really struggled. I think if I had to be honest, it's taken me a decade. I felt in me that was something I needed to learn in my early 30s, and really only in the last year before I hit 40, I think it sunk in. That prioritizing my peace. Detachment, being unbothered. But that doesn't mean you run away from problems. That doesn't mean you don't step in to like change something up. But it means like there is this groundedness in you that is such a strong compass that tells you what to bother with and about. And that just gives you so much power as a woman.
And learning to actually listen to that voice and that compass. Very, very important skill to learn. And, you mentioned failure. And on the opposite end of that is success. And I think another thing that I've learned is that success means different things to everybody, right? Which is why I don't really love using that word, because it's very subjective. But for you, what would you say success means to you at this point in your career? And has that definition evolved for you over time?
I think this thing about balancing fact and feeling is something I've really honed in on in the last year. I journal. I like to write my thoughts out. I don't do it religiously, like sometimes just twice a month or once a month, but it helps me unpack my thoughts and discover the root of why I'm feeling something. And once you've processed a feeling, you can go more into like what to factually do next. And when it comes to success, to answer your question, I like to take check of these 2 buckets. What will be factually successful? Is it revenue? Is it a new store? Which city? Which country? What are we doing with conversion rates? Like what's happening in our social accounts? But then feeling, like how many times that month was I able to do bedtime stories with my kids? Like, am I able to, if I'm away, like call them twice a day and catch them and schedule meeting times around that so I don't miss speaking to them because of the time difference? What about, like my dad recently was unwell and I could attend quite a few of his doctor's appointments and schedule other things around it. Was it a juggle? Yes. Was it stressful? Yes. But I was grateful to have even been able to attend those appointments before I flew to New York.
That's a success.
So I think I take check on what's successful from a feeling perspective, and then what's successful from a factual perspective. And then I'm a visual person, so I imagine like oil and water and how clearly it separates. And we've all had those lava lamps, being like a 90s kid that you shake up and then it separates again. And so visually, I'm like, if oil and water can do that, surely my brain can too.
I like what you mentioned about your journaling, because I'm the same way. Like I've heard you got to journal every single night, journal every single day. And I think to me, when I was trying to do that, I saw it as a failure every single night that I couldn't journal. And so to me, it's like if I'm able to journal 2 or 3 times a month, that's a success. So defining what that means to you, that personal success, very important. Okay, to wrap up this interview, I just want to ask you one last question. As your brand continues to grow and expand across these geographies like we spoke about, what is the legacy that you ultimately want to leave, not just in the jewelry world, but for the people who wear your pieces?
So our tagline is actually kind to your skin and the planet. And another one is inspired by intuition and individuality, because I think what I would like the brand to do from a business perspective or an entrepreneurism perspective is to show people that you can do it your way. You can feel through it and measure through it organically and see where that lands for you. It's not always a Series A, Series B, Series C valuations, and then valuations crash. And then they berate the female founder because it's her fault, isn't it? And so I think, for me, take your time, trust your gut, surround yourself with the right people, and do it your way.
I love that. Such a beautiful vision. And it's very clear that Wanderlust Co. is about so much more than the jewelry. Thank you, Jenn, for all of your insights today. I really appreciate it. And I wish you the best of luck in everything moving forward.
Thank you. It felt like such a great chat. Felt like I've known you for ages. Thank you for hosting such a beautiful space and questions.
Of course. Thank you. And thank you all for watching. And as always, we'll see you in the next episode of How She Did It.